Well, hello YouTube, I'm John Can, and if you're like me, you're probably at home due to the quarantine situation, which is kind of lame, but it is what it is. I've been keeping myself busy working on my addition, working in my yard, which has included pulling tons of weeds, and helping my son with his schoolwork since he's been home for weeks. Boo. But of course we have to do some fun things as well, so we're going to head out to the shop and do 3 fun little projects that will keep you entertained while you're on quarantine. If you're lucky enough to be essential and at work right now, just do these at work. It's okay, trust me. You can ask my boss, I do these things all the time. He loves it.
I'm Mike. Don't do the things that John Can does or says. You'll probably get fired.
So yeah, have a good time. Hope you're enjoying yourself and staying healthy. Enjoy the video. So for the first project, we're going to need a 20-ounce soda bottle, a drill with a 5/16" bit, and one of these long butane lighters. The only step in this project is to simply drill a hole in the middle of the lid for the soda bottle. Very easy to do. And just like that, you have a rocket nozzle. Of course, it never hurts to take the rough edges off with the pocket knife. The important thing to know is that you want your hole as centered and round as possible. Helps the rocket fly straighter. Okay, now we're ready to try this thing out. Light your lighter and blow the flame out. You are now going to put the lighter, while it's still running, down into the bottle. Butane is heavier than the air, so it'll sink into the bottle. The amount of time it'll take to fill your rocket will vary depending on your lighter and what size bottle you use. You can use a liter bottle or even a 2-liter to make one of these, but you should note that you need to make your nozzle hole bigger if you go larger. You'll have to do a little fine-tuning to figure out what fuel mixture you need for your particular rocket based on your lighter. Once again, that'll all vary. I used 18 seconds as my guideline for my bottle rocket with my lighter. After you set your rocket off, you're going to have to get the exhaust fumes out of the bottle. Pretty simple. All you need to do is squeeze the bottle a bunch of times. This will push the exhaust out and suck new air in. You'll notice that I'm standing off to the side when I light this thing. This is also why having the long lighter is important. The flame coming out of this thing is super hot and it will throw things at you, so be careful. You can build yourself a little ramp to get a better trajectory out of this thing. Pay attention to when I light this off in slow motion. You can see that it burns the piece of wood that I'm using for a backstop. Pretty cool. Alright, for the next project you're going to need a wiper blade spring, the thinnest one you can find, a couple used padlocks, a pair of pliers, and a small belt sander or grinder of some type. The first thing you're going to do is cut off a chunk of the wiper blade spring that is roughly 3.5 inches long. Then you're going to take your pliers and put a 90-degree bend on one end of it, about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more in length. This is going to make the torsion bar that we're going to use to apply pressure to the lock when we're trying to pick it. And now to make the lock pick itself, we're going to cut off another piece of the wiper blade spring that's once again about 3.5 inches long. We're going to use our sander on this piece to kind of build a little cam on one end of it. This is what's going to actually push the tumblers in our lock when we're trying to pick it. You'll want to go pretty slow and be kind of gentle. It's very easy to take more metal off than you need to, and it's also really easy to get the little piece of spring steel hot, and that'll make it to where it doesn't hold up as well. And when you're done, it should look something like this. And now we're ready to start practicing our lock picking skills. This is one of those things that takes practice and a little bit of finesse. You're going to put the torsion bar into the lock cylinder and just kind of push down on it with your finger or lift up on it with your thumb, however works best for you. I found that a little bit of a bouncing motion works really well. Then you're going to insert your lock pick into the lock and push the tumblers up and down, and it just takes practice. Something I want to note for you guys is that I am playing this all back at real-time speed. I have not sped this up at all. For somebody who's skilled, it takes no time at all to break into one of these locks. These are a pretty good brand name lock, and it didn't take me very much to get into them. So, something to keep in mind when you're out buying a padlock for your storage shed or something. Now, bigger locks and smaller locks will have different numbers of tumblers in them, so that's something you'll have to figure out how to kind of count and see what you've got going on there. Also, certain locks will want to be turned one way, and other locks will be the other direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. So that's all stuff you just have to kind of learn as you go along. I feel it should be obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't use this for evil. If you're breaking into somebody else's stuff, knock it off. That's not okay. No stealing, no breaking into people's houses or whatever. Don't do dumb stuff. This last lock was one that I personally used on my toolbox when I was a mechanic. Had a lot of money and tools kept safe by this lock. As you'll see, it was pretty easy to defeat it. Alright, now this last project has two different stages. The first part is to build the actual blowgun. I used a piece of, I think it's 3/8 brake line that I purchased at the local auto parts store. Use new brake line if you're going to do something like me. Don't use brake line. You don't want anything that's had brake fluid in it. I cut mine off to be about 18 inches long. You can make yours as long as you desire. It seems that more length does give you more velocity up to a certain point. And of course, if you wind up with a rough edge, you want to use, a file and some sandpaper to knock it down. You don't want any rough edges to catch your darts on the way out. Now, the brake line works really well for this kind of stuff because it has a flare on one end. The flare is great because it kind of works like a feed ramp to insert your darts. So that is something to keep in mind when you're building something like this. Now we're ready to make the darts. You're going to need a piece of a grocery bag, like a cheap Walmart bag or Safeway bag, something like that. A little bit of electrical tape, a razor blade, a large paper clip, and a pair of pliers. So you're going to straighten your paper clip out as best as you can. Straighter is better. And then you're going to cut it into 3 fairly equal pieces. These are going to be the shafts for the darts. Now we're ready to add fletching to our darts. The fletching serves 2 purposes. It is going to help our dart seal in the tube so we get good velocity. It is also going to help the dart to fly straight. So all I'm doing is cutting a couple of strips out of our Walmart bag. About 1.5 inches by 6 inches is pretty good. You're going to fold them a couple times and then roll them onto your dart shafts and then tape them on with a little bit of your electrical tape. It only takes about 1 inch, worth of the electrical tape to do a pretty good job. When you roll this onto the dart shaft, you want it to fit pretty snug. You want it fairly tight on there. You also want to make sure that you roll it pretty evenly. You can take a pair of pliers if you so desire and put just a tiny bend on the end of your dart shaft to help you roll it on there. It can kind of help to keep the fletching on there as well. You're going to put the electrical tape on in kind of the same fashion there. You're going to roll it on and you want it to fit pretty snug. That way, everything is kind of compact and is held on there pretty well. Once your fletching is attached securely to the dart shaft, you're going to take a razor blade and you're actually going to cut your fletching. You're going to kind of quarter it out. This is so that you can kind of pull the fletching out and make it bushier. That way, like we said earlier, it can seal in the tube a little bit better and help the dart fly straighter. Should look like this. Perfect. Now we've got our blowgun and our darts. We're ready to go try it out. You may need to use a little pokey stick to push your darts down into the tube so that you don't wind up catching the fletching with your mouth. They load pretty easily since we've got the flare from the brake line, and it shoots pretty nice. I'm shooting it about 8 feet away from the piece of cardboard, and they stick in there. No need to sharpen your darts or any of that. Alright, there you have it. There's 3 quick projects to get yourself into trouble or keep yourself busy during the apocalypse. The boys and I have had a very good time with the dart gun. We built ourselves a little target. You want to make sure you watch out for the rabid squirrel. He'll eat your face. So yeah, don't use these for evil. Have fun, but don't do bad things. Do me a favor, take a second and subscribe to this channel right now. Push that button. Also, like and share. That's a big deal. Share this with your friends. They need to be entertained as well. You want them to be educated, We're learning things here, so that's important. And as always, remember, if I can build it, so can you. We'll see you later.